Hello, this is Michèle at Dasami Bookworm Podcast. It is with sadness that I announce the passing of one of our authors. Chef Ruth Denzey lost her battle with cancer on Tuesday, the 19th of November. I do have to say, with her courage, nature, and her vibrant personality, it was a fight she faced with bravery and valor. And she has been a continual inspiration to me, and I am deeply saddened. Chef Ruth will remain on the Dasami site, and we will continue to support, promote, and sell her cookbooks, which benefit the local Pilgrim's Hospice and other cancer charities. So this is the re-release of her original podcast interview from September 2022. I hope you enjoy it as I did with the original interview. Thank you so much. Hello, this is Michèle Smith at Dasami Publishing, and once again, we are on episode 18 of the Dasami Bookworm Podcast. I am so delighted to introduce Ruth Denzey, who is Chef Ruth Denzey throughout her life, and we'll be getting into that in more detail. Welcome, Ruth.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi. So we'll ask a few personal questions, and then we're going to get to the reason behind the cookbook that we're producing for you.
Right.
The thing I'd like to know first is when did you first want to become a chef, and how did you go about it?
Well, to be honest, I didn't want to become a chef originally. Well, I grew up in Cambridge and I was a member of the Cambridge Youth Theatre, and I loved drama and acting. And when it came to time to leave school, my parents said, yeah, we'll help you and support you to go to RADA or whatever. But before you do that, you need to do something else that you can fall back on if you don't make it in acting or whatever. And I thought, I quite like cooking. I quite enjoyed cooking at school. I'll go and do a catering course. I got on into the Cambridge College of Arts and Technology, signed up for the catering course and won the College Cup in the first year for what I'd done, and thought, actually, I quite like this. So I did my 2 years, and then I did another 2 years part-time to specialise in patisserie. And by that stage, I was completely hooked on cooking. And it's been an absolute part of my life. It's been my whole life, really. Like, I think I kind of express myself through food.
I understand that from, chefs and those who love to cook so much that it isn't a job you do, it's who you are. So that's
Yeah.
what you are is a chef. Now, with the difference in patisserie, you said you focused on that. How did you decide that you wanted to do that? And what are the main differences to someone who's a neophyte, when it comes to the cooking?
Well, when you've done your first 2 years, they ask you if you want to specialise, and at that point, there was two specialities. One was patisserie, and the other one was larder. And larder involved things like game, how to skin and gut game and things. And whilst I'm not squeamish and I'm prepared to do it, I think I'd prefer to do patisserie because it's just a bit more fun and more pleasant to eat afterwards. So I just got involved with patisserie, although I haven't really specialised in patisserie during my career as such. I just love to cook. I love food. And I think most people, it might be a way, as I say, it's part of my character. And I think it's because you want to please people. I think people that are chefs and cook want to please people. And they almost want affirmation. When you put something down in front of people and they go, oh, that's fabulous. It's kind of like, yep, I did something good.
That absolutely, I agree with that because when if a beautiful plate of food, is in front of me, I just so appreciate all the work that's gone into it because that does it. I've tried a few things in my life and it takes forever, and the kitchen usually looks like a bomb site hit it.
Yep.
And it's not, sometimes it actually turns out quite tasty, but the effort and the time and the thought and design. I will confess to MasterChef, but I look at how they design the plates. So
Yes.
patisserie is very, well, it's all creative, but that there's so many little intricacies in that. What was the hardest part about patisserie?
I think you have to be very disciplined because, unlike with some normal dishes, you can kind of go, "Oh, I'll chuck a bit of this in and maybe a bit of that." Whereas with patisserie, because it's a science, all cooking's a science. It's physics, it's chemistry, it's how things react to each other. And with pastry work, you have to get your measurements right and you have to get your ingredients right because they all really interact. Whereas if you're doing a casserole or something, if you chuck a bit more red wine in or something, or you change your mushrooms for some peppers or something, it doesn't really make a difference. But when it comes to pastry work, you do have to pretty much follow a recipe pretty closely because it's a science.
Well, in watching the baking shows, when they're making sugar, they've got the thermometer right in
Yeah,
there. Uh,
yeah.
so that is, and it's exact. You have to put the exact ingredients in it and such.
Mm.
What's the most enjoyable part of patisserie for you, Ruth?
Well, I think most people have got a sweet tooth, and so everybody pretty much loves pastry or patisserie. Not everybody, not likes tripe or liver or other things that you do, but there's not many things that if people like sweet things, they like nearly all sweet things. And everyone likes a little bit of indulgence, and pastry work and patisserie is kind of indulgent. It's not something you have to eat every day.
Yes, and it is a special treat. So when you were going for your degree, was the final you had to create a special recipe?
Yeah, we had to do sort of special recipes. We also had to go with the hotel and catering exhibition every year. All the colleges used to enter people for the hotel and catering exhibition, so we had to do dishes for that and get them judged and things as well. So it taught you a good deal of discipline and sort of how to present things.
And how did you use, now you say that you've done lots of different kinds of cooking. Did you do patisserie in any work in a bakery or anything along those lines?
Not in a bakery as such, although when I first got married and moved out of London, we started my husband and I, ex-husband and I, started an outside catering business, and a lot of that involved patisserie because it was supplying local cake shops and bistros and things. So we used to do a lot of things like cheesecakes and uh, eclairs and a lot of quiches and things as well, but mostly desserts and sweet stuff for cake shops and things.
What
But I've kind of mostly done everything really. When I first left college, I actually didn't really go into catering as such. I went into food product development, and I worked for Spullers developing new products, cooking sauce, Home Pride cooking sauces. I don't know if you remember them. I worked on those way back. But it was actually, they were quite innovative in that I think at that point women were having to go out to work more, and actually people did need shortcuts to make decent food. Unfortunately, I think we've gone far too far the other way now. But at least with things like cooking sauces, you still had fresh ingredients, but you added the sauce to make an interesting dish without having to spend hours producing the sauce. So they were quite a good idea. But I think now, with so many sort of pre-made, everything's pre-made. You don't have to cook at all, which I think is a real shame. And I think it's actually adding to the health crisis because people don't know how to cook anymore and they have a lot of interest in cooking, but they don't necessarily have the time. And it's finding things that you can do in a short space of time, and you get home from work, but you want something healthy without just going to the supermarket and picking up a ready-made thing that you shove in the microwave.
I'll agree with you there. I don't buy ready-made meals.
Mm.
If I have an air fryer, and I will admit to short and fast is great for me. And I have
Yeah,
the George Foreman grill, and I do steaks on there, and then I do things that make it crispy, like chips, and that
yeah.
are fresh, because I'll buy fresh potatoes, I'll buy fresh meat, fresh fish, and you put the fish in there, and that's wonderful. So that kind of works. It's fast food without being unhealthy, and it's not processed.
Exactly. And there's a lot, but I don't think people realize there's an awful lot of things that you can cook within 20 minutes. You can knock together a good healthy meal in 20 minutes. buying fresh ingredients, but you do need to sort of have some good recipes or have an idea, have a vague understanding of how things work.
Yes, and that's where we get recipe books from, which we're going to talk about yours in a minute, the cookbooks, and from all the different designs. And I love listening to recipes. So I have one pastry question about that. We'll go back to the cookbook. What is the most difficult patisserie that you've ever done that you said, nope, don't want to do that anymore?
Um, well, a lot of people find choux pastry difficult, but actually, once you get an understanding of it, it's not that difficult. But making something like a croquembouche, which is the stacked choux pastries all glued together with caramel and what have you, it's not so much that they're difficult; they're just time consuming and they are technical. Once you've mastered the technique, it's straightforward. But and again, it's practice with anything like this. The first time most people make choux pastry, it's a complete disaster. Once you learn the basic rules of it, you can't go wrong. It's simple, but it's knowing the basic everything. All patisserie is knowing the basic rules.
And that's what comes down to the recipes. And now we're going to talk about your cookbook that
Right.
we will be producing for you. The important question is, Ruth, why did you want to do this particular cookbook?
Right. Well, I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, incurable ovarian cancer, 7 years ago. And my doctor said that I would have a 20% chance of surviving 5 years. I've done seven. But when obviously I spoke to my children and one thing or another, one of the first things my daughter said was, "Well, you're not dying until you give me all your recipes because I want, I want this and I want that." And during COVID and lockdown, I was bored and I thought, actually, I might just start putting a few of these recipes online. And it developed from there. I started a Facebook page, Ruth's Recipes, started putting a few on, and more people saying, "Oh, that's great, do some more." And a lot of them were the ones that my daughter wanted. And then after that, hello? Well, my daughter said after I'd been diagnosed that she wanted me to leave her all the recipes, things like suet dumplings and just stuff that I'd always cooked for her, and she had no idea how to do them. And I also got quite bored during COVID and decided that I might just put some things on Facebook and do a Facebook page called Ruth's Recipe, and it got more and more popular. And I thought, well, maybe I should do something with it and raise some money at the same time, and decided that I would turn it into a cookbook. Most of the recipes from the Facebook page, turn it into a cookbook, and any money from it would go to Macmillan Cancer.
That is such a wonderful legacy to leave, not only for your children and grandchildren and the rest of your family, but also for the world to enjoy. Someone that understands about, a special recipe from a certain chef that won't get shared around necessarily. So, what are your favorite recipes in the cookbook? Do you have a couple of favorites, Ruth?
I wouldn't say I have any favourites, because the thing about anybody who loves to cook is that you just love so many dishes. There are some that I use quite frequently, especially for things like parties and what have you. If I've got to cook, if I've got 20 people coming around for Christmas or for a Christmas party, there's certain things that work really well for occasions. But that equally, I do like to just go to the fridge, open the fridge door, and go, "Oh, I've got that, I've got that, I've got that. Oh, I can make that." So, yeah, it's very much I wouldn't say hit and miss. It's very much invention, really.
I have one. I'm not claiming to be any kind of chef at all, but I call it the kitchen omelet. I mean the
What?
fridge
Yeah,
omelet. And it's you open it and whatever's left in the fridge gets tossed in and it
yeah,
makes a wonderful omelet, and it's all the leftovers so that you don't have to worry about food, going to waste, because that's another thing, so much food is wasted. And
yeah,
if it can be used in a recipe, that's it. So I know that we're dividing the cookbook into two parts.
yeah.
It's the seasons. So we're going to go by seasons. So it's spring and summer, and then we have autumn and winter. Uh,
Yeah.
those are there ones that are easier? Is winter that thinks of the Christmas holidays and such? Are those recipes, do they take a little longer, or they're extra special ones?
I think winter food tends to be slower cooking, your casseroles and your pies and things like that. So they can take longer, but again, they can be done. A lot of them can be done in a slow cooker if you have to work and you don't have that sort of time. A few seasonal ones. Sometimes I put in gifts, Christmas edible Christmas gifts that you can make. Things like biscotti and chili jellies and stuff that you can give away. I do every year. I'm such a cheapskate. I make all my Christmas presents for friends.
Well, that's not being a cheapskate, to be honest. When I watch the cooking shows, when it comes to the holidays, they're saying how special it is to have that kind of gift because you've made it personally. So it's something that you've made for someone. It's a part of you that you're giving. I think those are so much more special. When it comes to biscotti and the jellies, how is when you create a new recipe, how do you do that? Do you just pick something or?
I think, to be honest, I mean, there's really no such thing as a new recipe because most of these dishes have been around for donkey's years. And I think most chefs have their own repertoire of dishes that they've made for donkey's years, and many of them are classics and actually are, especially in patisserie, everything is exact and you can't really change it. On other dishes, you have freedom to sort of play around and you get inspiration from seeing other chefs' dishes or going out to eat somewhere and you go back and you go, okay, I'll take that, but I might just do this and I'll tweak that. But at the end of the day, poulet normand is poulet normand. It's chicken with apples and things and wine. So whilst the recipe, the original idea is the same, every chef tweaks the original idea and has might have just different ratios of ingredients or might put something else in which wasn't in the original. It's very hard. In fact, it's nigh impossible to create a new dish, really.
It's all kind of standard ingredients. So I have a personal question. My mom, when she would, a good, Scottish cook, from the old school, and she would make mince or stew beef, she would put a little bit of allspice in it.
Yeah.
Is that because my mom did it? I always thought it was normal. Is that
That's quite adventurous, really. I mean, I think now a lot of people, because we have influences from other countries, if you do minced beef, a lot of people put a bit of cumin or coriander in and it's not making it Indian as such, but I mean, because a lot of Middle Eastern dishes use cumin and coriander and smoked paprika and things. So really, we're sort of, I think it's great now that we have the internet and everything, and we can get so many recipes from abroad because we're getting more and more fusion dishes and things that you used to think, oh, you can't put that with that, can you? And actually, yes, you can. And create something that's a fusion of two different cultures, but actually works really well. And I think people get very, very sort of, this is a hot pot. You don't mess around with a hot pot, or you don't mess around with souvlaki or whatever. But actually, when you start fusing things, you come up with something that's sometimes even better.
And savory and sweet, the combination of flavors, because then it
Yeah.
touches, I think, the sensory parts of the tongue. So if you've got
Mm.
savory, sweet, and they add the vinegar and different little bits and pieces.
Mm.
A recipe I heard of, and they were doing spaghetti sauce, and they put a wee bit sugar in it. And I tried it.
Always put sugar in. I always put any tomato sauce. I always put a half a teaspoon to a teaspoon of sugar because, unfortunately, living in a colder climate like we do, although not so much this year, things like tomatoes don't get the flavour that they get in Italy and France, where they have such a hot climate. They're much sweeter and more flavoursome over there. So especially in the wintertime, putting a little bit of sugar in with your tomato sauce rounds it up completely, makes it much, much nicer.
Yeah, it was a richer flavor. I really love that. And I've always listened to people and try wee bits and pieces. Although sometimes, a sandwich, a messy sandwich is what I love. A good burger with lots of stuff on it, like a fridge burger, you just throw everything on it.
Yes.
What would you say to, I'm a semi-neophyte when it comes to cooking. I've done a little bit, but to people who really want the basic for beginning cooking, whether they're younger or middle-aged, where should they start? Where's the best place to start, Ruth?
Um, get a good. I mean, Delia Smith brought out her cookbooks for complete beginners. She said almost pretty much from how to boil an egg. I can't remember what they were called, but and also the Master Chef Kitchen Bible, I think it was called, and they show you techniques right from very basics. If you once you've learnt the basics, how to make a white sauce, bechamel sauce, how to chop an onion, how to sort of saute something, how to make a basic stew, how to make soup. I'm just amazed that people go out and buy a soup maker or buy soup in a plastic tub. If you've got a fridge full of ingredients, let's face it, we all go out and buy far too much vegetables. You open your fridge drawer, your vegetable drawer, and you can make some amazing soups with the stuff that's kind of going a little bit limp, and you think, better chuck it. You don't need to chuck it. Turn it into a soup.
I have so many friends that do that, and they've got the leftovers or this, whatever it might be, and they just throw it in and make a soup. And I will admit, Ruth, I've been afraid to try that, and even with my veg and such, and I use it till it's absolutely gone. But I always think, oh, so if I wanted to start with very simple soup, a basic kind of vegetable soup, what kind of stock should I use? Is it one of the cube stocks, or should I like boil a chicken, or what's the best way to start it?
When you first start, use a stock cube or the little stock jellies. But once you get into it, if ever I have a roast chicken and you've taken all the meat off the chicken, stick the chicken in a pot, just big enough to take it, cover it with water, chuck half an onion and a couple of carrots in, and just let it simmer for an hour or so. Strain it off, and you've got chicken soup, chicken stock. And just freeze it. I've got lots of ice cream tubs or whatever, and just freeze the stock in the ice cream tub. Same with fish. I don't know, nobody's going to take a whole salmon home and fillet it. But if you're buying a side of salmon for Christmas or whatever, ask the butcher or the fishmonger for the bones. Chuck those fish bones in a saucepan. Just cover it with water, and again a little bit some onion or whatever, and just boil it for half an hour and strain it, and you've got fish stock. But if you're just starting out, buy the stock cubes or buy the little stock jelly pots. They're fine. They're absolutely fine.
All right. Well, you have inspired me, Ruth. I'm going to try it. I'm actually going to try a soup. I think all of the friends will be just like dominoes falling over each other, thinking of me doing
It's some soups, things like, ideally, leek and potato, so simple. Just chop up some leeks, bit of butter, just sweat them off a bit, chuck your potatoes in, chuck your stock in, leave it to simmer for 20 minutes and blitz it with a hand blender. I recommend everybody goes out and buys a little hand blender, because they are so useful for so many things, especially if you're making soups.
Okay, hand blender. I'll add that to my air fryer, and then my kitchen will be outfitted. I learned from my mom, so I still peel potatoes the old way, old fashioned, with a wee paring knife, just because I'm used to it. So I have all the old fashioned kind of blender things.
Yep.
So I have a bit of those. But I love hearing about new recipes and trying new things. So
Mm.
for we've got the books will have your favorite recipes, and lots of them, which I'm delighted to see. And since I've been reviewing it, I have to say I've got one complaint. Every time I read the recipe and see the picture, it's like, okay, can I have it now to eat, please?
Good.
It looks absolutely delectable, I have to say. So we'll probably do another podcast in a few weeks' time to follow up for what we're doing. What I would like to mention is that we are doing a crowdfunding campaign through Arcbound. Well, it's through Crowdbound, which is a part of the charity Arcbound. We will be raising the money for the publication of the book, because we want it to be a stellar color production, and to give quality to the recipes that Ruth has created here and done. So we're going to put a link on it. We are going to have special offers for everyone. So there'll be the two books, depending on which season you want, or you can have both. We're going to have extra little special goodies and giveaways, which will be in the description. Also in the description will be the link to where you can give your contribution, and we will be working on the release date, which is anticipated to be towards Black Friday and Thanksgiving, so that everybody will be able to receive their book in time for Christmas. We will be having ongoing episodes for podcasts and such. As Ruth did mention, the funds will be benefiting the Macmillan. And just so everybody knows, this is a cost-only book. So although we're producing it, it's cost-only. We are not going to be keeping any internal funds. Everything will be going to the donated charity, which will be directed by. So I'm quite proud of that. We do have a commitment to community. Ruth, would you like to describe how the support that you received when you were first diagnosed from Macmillan and the other charities?
Oh, well, right from the word go, when you first start going for your chemo, I actually was also taking part in a chemo drug trial at the start of my treatment. And the Macmillan nurses were amazing. They'd chat to you every time I went in. They'd do a survey and just see how you're getting on. But they offer so much support throughout, but also end of life care and things, and how to just come to terms with the fact that you're not going to live forever, that it's it is life limiting, and working out how you're going to sort things with your family and friends, and also financial problems. When you get cancer, suddenly for a lot of people they can't work, or various things happen, and the cost of going to the hospitals and things. Macmillan are really good at helping you with various all sorts of support, financial and advice, one way or another.
I have to say, for those in the audience who don't know this, I have also been a beneficiary of Macmillan when I was diagnosed a few years ago. And thankfully, I went through surgery and radiation, didn't need the chemo, and I'm on the other end of it. I haven't reached that 5-year bit, but I'm getting closer all the time. But Macmillan did. I came to it from confusion of what do I do? How do I do? What do I do next? Financial, the guidance, where do I go for anything? So it's been a major contributing factor. Has there been a local charity for you that's in your area, Ruth? Because I know you live in England.
Not specifically. I mean, also for some people that find the treatment really harsh, it was quite handy to go to. There was a local charity, off the top of my head, I think it's closed now, but it would give you advice about how to get financial support, and also if you needed PIPs, personal independent payments. If you find that, especially if it's life limiting, you get less and less able to walk as far, or a friend of mine has facial cancer, and was late diagnosis, and he is also terminal, but he can get social PIPs because people don't understand what he's saying sometimes, because he's had so many operations on his head that if he makes phone calls and things, it's really hard. And be able to get advice, and again, Macmillan will tell you where to go to get advice to support you through whatever you're going through.
And I have to say, part of what Macmillan did for me was I was guided to two local charities that made a huge impact. Rainbow Valley, and they assisted me with counseling, and we went away for 2 days just in the middle of it, and it took you away with people who are in the same boat as you are. And I think, Ruth, that you will agree, people who are in that same boat understand in a different
absolutely
way.
Yeah.
And then the other one is Maggie's, which is very local in Glasgow, next to the hospital, and they provided great assistance for ongoing care as to making yourself feel better with cosmetic days, mindfulness, and Tai Chi. So I think another bit of advice to anyone who's listening is go to Macmillan. They will help guide you in the
Direction. Yes, they'll
larger
point you in the direction to get, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
and point you in the direction of others who can give you more localized help, which I think is really important.
Yeah.
Because support during that time from family is wonderful, emotional support from friends, but from those who, as I said, are going through the same thing, have a special understanding and
Yes.
what we want to do with it, and talk or not, or whatever it might be. So we'll have links for all of those in our description, obviously. So I'm going to end on a happy note because I want to talk about the patisserie. What is your favorite pastry to make that you think?
I like making a baked New York cheesecake.
All right, that's one on my list. A good New York cheesecake is just to die for. The texture
Yeah.
and flavor that hits it, and then that crumbly crust.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you ever done a key lime pie?
I have, yes. And that's quite easy to make, really, because it's evaporated milk and limes and yeah, it's actually relatively I don't think I put it in the book. Might have to do that one.
Oh, all right. That'll be one of the special ones we'll give out. So, so for those who have listened to the podcast, you'll get that special one. Anything else that you would like to give advice to our listening audience, Ruth, regarding either the cancer or cooking or baking in a general sense?
Not really, but I do think if you're a little bit nervous of cooking, just get in there and give it a try, because the more you do it, the more adept you get at it, and the more you realize, work out why this happens and that happens. And once you get into it, you can get hooked very quickly.
As I'm sure I will once I start the soup. I just have to start the soup. It could be like
sourdough. I started seeing sort of sourdough recipes. Thought, I might give that a go. Made my own starter, and now I've been making sourdough with the same starter for the last 10 years, probably.
Oh, wow. That's amazing to think of that one little bit will start it off. And so sourdough is one of my favorite breads.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a new one that's smelt rye and wheat. And oh my gosh, that's wonderful. I love fresh baked breads, which will go perfectly with the soup I'm going to make.
Exactly.
Get those. So I'm going to put you on the spot, Ruth, because I didn't say anything about it before, but we always do a shout out at the end of our podcast. Who is there any single person or a group, someone special you'd like to do a shout out to for the podcast?
Well, I have to say my family, really, for being so supportive, and my daughter, who's been pretty supportive, and the one that got me on this road in the first place, actually doing the cookbook. But all my friends have been amazing, and I just love to be social and spend time with them. So the more time I get to do that, the better.
Absolutely. Every day is precious to us. And I think once we've been through it, I had a friend who's gone through prostate cancer and is on the other side of it. And we all recognize each day is special, recognize that one, and then we can get on with the rest of it. So,
yeah,
because we can't assume anything. So, Ruth, as a special chef and special guest, I want to thank you so much.
Thank you.
As I said, we're going to have a follow-up podcast in November before the release of the book. But in the meantime, I would like to remind everyone this has been a Zoom. So if you've heard anything untoward, it's because Ruth is in England and Michèle is in Scotland, and never the twain shall meet. Please download the episode. I thank you very much. It's Michèle from Jasami Bookworm Podcast. As always, wishing you a sunny day.